Hey, welcome to Crizzy Books. I'm Crizzy, or Criz, but only my Mothmen call me Criz. And today I want to talk about The Mothman Prophecies by John Keel. The Mothman Prophecies is a paranormal UFO alien investigation collection of encounters from 1975. John Keel, the author, spent some time in West Virginia around Point Pleasant when a lot of weird circumstances were happening. Most notable were sightings of a giant bird moth like man-looking creature that could fly next to cars, had big red glowing eyes, people spotted flying around in the sky, just in general causing hysteria in the area. And as if that wasn't interesting enough, this whole area, the whole region, was going through high strangeness, lots of UFO sightings, men in black, things of that nature. And so John Keel puts himself on the front lines, visiting people who claim to have seen things, who claim to have encounters with weird men, to have seen the Mothman creature, Bigfoot, whatever it is. He was there speaking with these people and documenting it, and that's what this book is. And this all culminates up to a huge tragedy that took place in 1967. The Silver Bridge that is in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, collapsed on Christmas Eve and killed 46 people. And that disaster was tied to the Mothman and all of these strange things that were happening, because after this event, things started to kind of fizzle out. So this book is a little too all over the place for me to say that it's outright good. However, it does contain a lot of very interesting paranormal stories and encounters, especially when it comes to UFOs and aliens and things of that nature. For me, this is the first nonfiction alien UFO book that I've ever read, and quite the introduction into that whole area of writing. To my knowledge, this one is considered to be one of the better ones, so I can only imagine what a bad UFO book is like. For a book called The Mothman Prophecies, there is a surprising lack of actual Mothman in this book. It spends a majority of its time just talking about UFO sightings from people in the area and men in black encounters. And John Keel himself becomes directly involved with all of it somehow. I think that the best aspects of the book come from some of these stories and these encounters, and how just chilling and eerie they can be. There is some truly kind of, horror-inducing things that Keel presents here that supposedly happened to real-life people. But on the flip side of that, it's just really disjointed and highly confusing all throughout. Keel jumps between different things of different nature, totally different subjects. There's really no start or finish, or a clear linear path to follow when it comes to all of these encounters. He's constantly jumping back and forth in time and to the same people over and over all throughout, and it just becomes really hard to keep straight as to when exactly these things were happening, who they're happening to. So things start to get a little lost. I think that if you are a skeptic or have a skeptical mind, this is not the book for you. He tries very early on in the book to establish himself as, I'm not crazy, I'm not kooky, this is all very serious, I'm a serious investigator. And then very quickly starts to get into things like tulpas and interdimensional beings and men in black dealings, and things start to kind of border on paranoia at certain times. It can be a little hard to take seriously. But if you take what he's saying at his word, or are able to suspend your disbelief, it does paint a really interesting picture of a time and place of high strangeness, and it does tend to kind of make you ask, what if? Another one of the issues that I had with it was its pace is just rapid fire. He's giving us all of these encounters from people so quickly that you're not really able to grasp any type of real significance from anything or anyone. It gets really repetitive as well, and it tends to just gloss over things that I found to be pretty significant that it just becomes another story in the book. And some of these things are truly insane and very frightening. If you want to see my overall rating for the Mothman Prophecies, you can skip ahead. I'll have it timestamped down below. But for now, I want to talk about some more specific details of this book. So if you're looking to read it yourself and don't want any spoilers, go ahead and skip ahead. All right. So I have always considered myself to be someone who's very open-minded when it comes to things, especially in the paranormal world. A question that I've asked several close friends of mine in the past is, if I told you that I saw Bigfoot, if I believed that I saw Bigfoot in the woods and I told you that, would you believe me? And then I have to ask myself the same question. If they did the same thing, would I believe them? Would you believe your best friend if your best friend told you that something insane like this, something paranormal, happened to them? I think a lot of us would probably say, I don't know, or no, which is kind of crazy. And that's how most people who have encounters like this, that's what they have to deal with all the time. So you have somebody like John Keel who is believing all of them essentially and wants to get their stories out there, and I think that that's good and important. However, with this book, John Keel is very heavily and directly involved in a lot of the encounters that he talks about, and it gets a bit concerning for me as a reader because it's kind of like, oh, of course you are. You're not just a reporter or an investigator, you're a part of the story too. And it led me to not fully believe him, even though some of the things that he talks about are so far-fetched and bizarre that it almost turns into, I don't know how you would have made something like this up. But it does make it a little difficult sometimes to trust him. I would say around the 2/3 mark, everything goes completely off the rails. He ends up turning himself into the main character of this book, and it just got to be very ridiculous. Even though the book doesn't really have much to do with the Mothman and Mothman sightings, it has more to do with Men in Black. That is essentially what this book is about. I found those stories to be very wild and very interesting. When you think about what would aliens posing as humans look like, how would they interact with people, how would they appear, I'm sure that it would be very uncanny. I think they would probably have weird features and they would do strange things, which is how all of that is presented here. And some of these things are very out there, that it becomes, again, for me, believable if I'm trying to think of it in that way. One of the big details that a lot of these people said was that their shoes were strangely big. Like all of them wore shoes that were too big, and I think that that's really interesting that there was that kind of connective thread through a lot of it. Indrid Cold as a character in this, I think that these were the most interesting parts by far, that we have a very specific man in black who's visiting this guy Woodrow Derenberger, and Woodrow's interactions with him were very out there, very crazy. And I felt like Keel glosses over a lot of these things. There's a part where he talks about how Cold took Derenberger to his planet and let him meet his family and showed him all this stuff. That's crazy. And it's just kind of a footnote in this. Again, it just kind of like, that just feeds into how this book just doesn't seem to have any real focus or want you to take anything seriously, because it's just like, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then this. It just keeps chugging along instead of being like, hey, this is a significant event, and here's why. And I'll keep talking about it. There is not enough Mothman in a book called The Mothman Prophecies. I'm sorry, but I came here for Mothman, and I barely got Mothman. The stories about Mothman in this are great. I've heard them all before. I've always been interested in Mothman, and so I've heard all of them. But to hear it, from the actual source book is really cool, and they're good. They're scary. They're eerie. I liked how he brought other cryptids into the fold, like Thunderbirds. I grew up in Illinois, not too far from Alton, where a lot of Thunderbird sightings were. So that was fun to read about some of those things. But ultimately, yeah, Mothman is just a very small portion in this book that's just about Men in Black and UFO sightings, which were all very interesting and stuff, but just I wanted more Mothman. Yeah, it is what the name of the book is. So also, who the fuck is Princess Moon Owl? He's brought her up multiple times, and I could not find anything about this anywhere. And that's where it starts to, you know, Keel's credibility starts to fall away for me, where I can't find anything about what this thing is. Maybe he's making it up. Or maybe this is paranoia really showing through. Who knows? Overall, I gave the Mothman Prophecies a 3 out of 5. Maybe a little too generous. I thought it was fine in terms of like its atmosphere and what it's talking about. I think it's interesting enough, you know, and depending on what your beliefs are in terms of the paranormal, is going to determine your enjoyment of it. I think that if you're interested in these things, you know, cryptozoology, UFOs, paranormal stuff, I don't know that this is essential. And even I struggled to take it seriously sometimes. But it is cool, it is interesting, and there are some really interesting things within it. But I think that, honestly, there are better sources that you could get from, like, the History Channel or on YouTube that would give you these encounters and these stories and really bring more life to them. So I don't know that this is the best place to get these stories from. I don't know how timeless it is or relevant now, but it was definitely interesting and somewhat fun. So take that with what you will. But what do you think? Have you read the Mothman Prophecies? Let me know what your thoughts are down below. If you're interested in reading the Mothman Prophecies and plan on purchasing a copy, I have an affiliate link to Amazon down below. If you click on that link and buy it, I get a bit of a percentage back on it. Just a small way you can support me, support this channel. If you are on Goodreads or Fable, I am on both, so you can follow me there. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and as always, thanks for watching. Bye.